A very good afternoon to you. I thought I'd just make this video while there's a gap in the tennis due to the rain, and also really I was kind of prompted to make this video because I watched a video by Simon Crane this morning where he sent his heartfelt sympathies to the family and friends of all the victims in Orlando. Now obviously that is, as read, any decent, right-thinking person in the world would do exactly the same thing, where we wouldn't like to see our family or friends involved in such an incident. And as Simon said, the lesbian and gay society is probably one of the nicest, most inoffensive groups of people you could ever wish to meet. We here in Manchester have what we call the Gay Village, which is a great night out if you ever come to Manchester, and is indeed one of the safest places, most welcoming places that you can have in Manchester as a big city. So why I'm making this video? Well, I'm making this video really just as picking up a couple of things that Simon said and a couple of things that were said in his comments, and also regarding a couple of conversations I had yesterday on Facebook in and around gun law in America. Now, let me say straight off the bat that if I lived in America, I would probably have a gun. Yes, I would. Why? Because I'm a bloke, and that's what blokes do. And I would have it and love it, and probably be some form of pistol, I would have thought. And I would go probably on a Saturday or a Sunday morning to the range and fire off a few magazines and get my thrill that way and hone my skills as far as being a very, very good and the best marksman I could possibly be. Now, the problems that I have with guns in general and gun law in America, I'm also a great believer, and hopefully the right-minded of you watching this will agree with this as well. It isn't guns that kill people. It is people that kill people. And if we take out the ludicrous religious connotation of what happened in Orlando, the fact still remains that what you have is an unstable member of the community who somehow has managed to get hold of a firearm. Now, you may or may not be aware, if you live outside the UK, gun law here in the UK is very, very tightly regulated, and you can only get a gun if you are A, a member of a shooting club, or B, a landowner. And generally then you are only allowed a shotgun for vermin control. Other guns that are on the streets here in Britain are done through the black market, and inevitably, like any first world country, if you are in the market to get a black market gun, then you will be able to get one because you move in those kind of circles anyway. So where I'm coming from in this is that we, as a civilized planet, as we like to believe, all pronounce our outrage when something like this happens. It continues to happen in the US. The Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, is fine, and it is inscribed in law. But as I understand it, and then this is where we go back to a conversation I had on Facebook yesterday, the Second Amendment was made to the Constitution to allow farmers and landowners in the continental United States, as it was during the War for Independence, to form local militias in and around the countryside, that if they saw any British encroaching on their land as a possible invasion force, they would have the right by law to take up arms and kill the aggressor. And that law, the Second Amendment, has stayed in place. Well, a number of things come from that. Firstly, one, the British are not coming back. You are a power unto yourselves, and you've now created what was the most powerful nation on the planet. And I say what was is because I think, personally, in my opinion, it's arguable that China is now the financial powerhouse and the armed powerhouse of the planet. So basically, you can do with your legislation as you wish. But what doesn't seem to be looked at by the majority of the American population is that the reason that there is so much gun crime is because there are so many guns available to so many people. Now, in any society, a percentage of the population are going to be mentally unstable. And those are the people who commit any form of crime, especially violent crime. The difference between here in the UK, where you may get violent crime as beatings or things like that, in America, you can potentially apply for a gun license and either you've not been convicted of any form of felony previously, or you've not been in mental health care. It would appear that you can lay your hands on a firearm. And we're not just talking about a .22 caliber pistol here. We're talking about a Magnum revolver or a semi-automatic rifle, which is very akin to the kind of things that the armed forces use out in combat theatres. It seems to me, watching the coverage of a lot of people, and again the conversations I had yesterday, that the solution to gun crime seems to be more guns. That's kind of the way that you look at it. And I appreciate that if I'm to skew my logical mind a little bit, if all teachers in a school were to be issued with a gun, then should anybody attack a school with an automatic weapon, as has happened in colleges all around the US, then teachers could potentially shoot the aggressor. I think I might have that right. The problem with that is, of course, is that teachers are only people. They are not trained firearm police officers or military or whatever. So the potential is there for them to panic, be nervous, and as soon as you are nervous and you can't control your breathing or whatever, the chance of you having a less than accurate shot at the aggressor could result in further deaths, innocent deaths, that you, yourself, the teacher who has a firearm, could have caused. So for me, the argument that more guns means less gun crime kind of doesn't hold good. I don't know what it's going to take in the US for viewpoints to change. What it appears to me is this, is the overbearing opinion in America because of the NRA, etc., is that you can take my firearm out of my cold, dead hand kind of mentality. And I think that the right to bear arms is viewed as a God-given right. It isn't a God-given right, folks. What it is a piece of legislation that can be repealed at any time. But unfortunately, it appears to be so ingrained in your culture that normal people had to have guns to repel us, the British, that is for some reason God-given. It kind of isn't. In World War II, we had here what are known as the Dad's Army, which is older gentlemen, fathers and grandfathers who were too old to serve in the armed forces, who were put into voluntary regiments, as it were, all of which were issued with firearms to fight off perhaps any Germans that got across the Channel into Britain, and they had the right of the law at the time, which was brought into force because of the war, special regulation to shoot any German that they found potentially if he refused to surrender. At the end of World War II, the Dad's Army regiments were disbanded, and their rights to hold weapons was also disbanded, and they had to hand those weapons back. So in theory, that's what could and should have happened at the end of the war for independence. Because once you'd won it and you'd got your independence from Britain, potentially, the normal people, the general public in America, didn't need to have guns. And there would have had to be some form of regulation to allow anybody to have a gun who actually needed one. And you wouldn't get a hand on a weapon unless you could prove that you actually needed a weapon. I think the problem here is that mentality doesn't seem like it's going to change that quickly. Even though you have a growing section of your population now who are baying for this to change because members of their family and friends have been killed in shootouts in colleges or buildings or nightclubs, as it was over the weekend. But your politicians don't seem to want to repeal that law, even though they may well stand up and voice their disgust about these shootings happening. And I think they don't want to repeal the law because they feel it might lose them votes, especially to the right of centre in American politics. So what's the solution to this? Well, the solution is what I've outlined, which is there has to be less guns available to the general public, because nobody in their right mind who holds a gun would dream of going out and letting off 3 or 4 magazines of a semi-automatic weapon in a college or a school or a nightclub or a supermarket or whatever. They just wouldn't. So that seems obvious to me that it points to the people who are doing this have had some form of mental breakdown, or have a history of mental breakdown. And you, as an American citizen, if you want to apply for a firearm, must show that you are mentally stable by means of medical and psychiatric testing that has been done perhaps previously, or that something is put in place whereby every year or every 2 years your suitability to hold a license for a firearm and to hold a firearm is tested. Now, I appreciate that what I'm saying is going to perhaps upset a lot of my American viewers. I've lost one this morning solely because that's what he said he was going to do yesterday on Facebook, and that's fine. But that, to me, is kind of indicative of the attitude of I'm right in what I'm saying, and I don't care what you're saying, and I'm going to take my ball out the playground kind of thing. Not the kind of attitude, well, I feel I'm right in what I'm saying, but you have the right to your opinion. There's another saying, a very good saying, which I try to live by here, which is, I may well not agree with your opinion and what you're saying, but I will fight to the death for your right to say it. So before you unsubscribe from me, I would hope that you take on board that ethos. And just consider the fact that in countries where firearms are not legally available, easily available, then the levels of gun crime are far, far less. Recently, it has been the case in America where a lot of your police departments have had in a group of chief police officers into America from Britain to teach your police departments how to defuse situations where potentially people under normal circumstance would be shot by the armed police officer. I think you have something called the 120-foot rule, where if the person runs away and is failing to surrender, that person can be shot. And I believe what will happen is that hopefully what will happen is that the ethos that we have here in Britain to try to talk people down so that they can be arrested peacefully, because obviously the most violent thing we have here on the street, as it were, are tasers. Yes, we do have armed response, but they're very specialised. They only come out on the street on very specialised occasions, and it still feels very wrong when I go through an airport and I see armed police officers here in Britain. It feels very, very wrong to me. So, to wind this up, I do send my sympathies out to everybody who's been affected by yet another mass shooting by an idiot in America. The religious connotation of that is a debate for another day, which I will do. But I do believe that these things happen because people can get hold of these weapons relatively easily. Let me know what you think about this one. I do accept that it's going to push a wedge between some of my viewers in America who believe that you have a God-given right for arms and you're a perfectly stable person. That's fine. And you probably are a perfectly stable person. But it is obvious by the number of mass shootings that there are in the US, there's a lot of what appears to be very unstable people in the US, and these people can get hold of guns. And as I said at the beginning, it isn't guns that kill people, it's people who kill people. And a gun, an automatic weapon, is a very efficient way for a mentally deficient person to kill other people. When's this going to stop? Thanks very much for watching this, people. I'm sorry that it's actually quite a downer, this one. As always, let me know your opinions on this. Depending on what side of the fence you are, I don't care. And if you're on the gun side, let me know why. Let me know why it's so important to you. Let me know why it's so important that you don't have this law repealed. What are you defending? Let me know. And if you're defending your home, fine. But do you need an automatic weapon to do that? Questions, queries, suggestions, answers to this one. How can this be stopped? We surely, as a population of the world, can't want to see this kind of atrocity happening. It keeps happening. We need to stop it. How do we stop it? Let me know down below. To the subscriber who's gone, I'm not going to name you here. A little bit disappointed. I thought you were bigger than that, considering that on most of the things we align. And I'd hope that you would have seen that I have a right to an opinion as well as you have a right to an opinion. So for now, people, if you find this one interesting, give it a thumbs up. If it's your first time here, you think, God, this is a bit heavy. It's not all like this. Have a look in the back catalogue and see if you can find anything. And I'll speak to you again soon. Bye-bye.